Good morning. My name is Lorraine Jacobs. Mark Miller and I are co-chair of the Sunday Morning Forums. We welcome and thank you for supporting Sunday Forums. For over 50 years at First Unitarian Society Milwaukee, the Sunday Forum Lecture Series has showcased speakers. Forums are 1 hour in length and provide a presentation followed by questions. Scheduling and hosting these weekly programs is accomplished by volunteers. The presenters do not receive honorarium. The content of each forum may not always align with the viewpoint of First Unitarian Society Milwaukee. They are meant to offer topics which can be pursued further independently. Before we begin today, I'd like to remind you that next Sunday, April 10th, our topic will be a county approach to preventing falls among older adults, with Susie Breyer and Dr. Ed Duthie presenting. Be sure to watch for details on weekly announcements, the website, and reminder emails to confirm the forum structure and time each Sunday. Today, we are welcoming Willie Karidis, and he will be introduced by today's forum host, Joanne Bacher. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Good morning. I'm very happy to introduce our speaker, Willie Karidis, this morning. I had the good fortune to become acquainted with Willie several years ago when I took a trip to Alaska with the Urban Ecology Center, and where he had been the executive director of the Denali Education Center from 1992 to 2008. While Willie has spent much of his working life in Alaska, he tells me he grew up on the south side of Milwaukee, right behind Leon's Custom, where in fact he got his first job. In 1987, Willie homesteaded 35 acres in Alaska, 15 miles from the nearest road. With the help of several friends, he built a cabin that allowed him, while drinking his morning coffee, to look at Denali. Willie returned to Milwaukee and was the branch manager of the Urban Ecology Center, Washington Park branch, from 2009 to 2014. He and his wife, Christine, then returned to Alaska in the summer of 2014, where he was the chief operations officer for the Iditarod Sled dog race for 2 years. He is now the project manager for the Rails to Trails Conservancy, helping to build the route of the trail net. I will now turn it over to Willie.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I heard that this is the first time that you guys are getting back together. Awesome. That's awesome. So thanks so much for having me. I'm gonna leave that alone. And thank you, Joanne, for the introduction. And I used to work with Nancy at the Urban Ecology Center, and Mary went on one of our trips, the first one that we did through the Urban Ecology Center back to Alaska. You look familiar too. You weren't there. Okay. Well, today I'm here to talk about the Route of the Badger. I work with Rails to Trails Conservancy. Can I have the first slide, please? And then the next slide.
Here, the closed caption is going to be in the way. Here, hold on. We tried to put closed caption on, and I'm going to have to stop this for a second.
Anyway,
We can hide our subtitles, but other people can see it.
Okay.
Okay.
So
now, there you go. Now you should go.
okay, so the next slide, please. There we go. So as Joanne mentioned, I used to be the executive director of the Denali Education Center. I did that for 16 years. And initially, I grew up on the south side, and went to Madison, and then a week after I graduated, two buddies and a dog, we drove up to Alaska. And I ended up drilling for gold, got this crazy job in 1981, and did that for the summer, and after that I was hooked. It was just this amazing place. I had always been attracted to nature and attracted to the outdoors. And so I went back. Well, first I started working for Chi-Chi's Mexican restaurants. Do you remember those? And did that for a couple of years. And after a few too many burritos, I decided to go back and started working in Denali. Got the job with the Education Center, also got a teaching credential and from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And then just really settled in. And at the time in the 80s, they still had the homesteading program. And I thought, this has got to go away. It's too great. They can't give away free land, up to 40 acres of land. All you had to do was build a cabin. And so you had to have surveyed, build a cabin, and you had to live on it for 20 months out of 5 years to get it for free. And if you didn't live on it for 20 months, if you just built the cabin and had it surveyed, you had to pay fair market value. So I got 35 acres for $3,900. And, but the goal of it was to wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, look out the window and see Denali. And there weren't many homesteads that were offered like that, unless they were way out in the backcountry. So this one was about 15 miles. Well, it is 15 miles from the nearest highway. So you had a snow machine, all your materials, and find people to help you. It's on the side of this bluff, and it's a crazy cabin. So that was a great thing. I still have that land. But my parents were 89 years old. I've got 6 sisters, and none of them were really set up to go back to Milwaukee to help. And so in 2009, Christine and I came back, and right before we got back, my father passed, and then we moved in with my mom, and she died 6 weeks later. So, but at those end of life times, all kinds of people need you. And so it was good to be back and, just kind of making our way. And Christine decided to join the roller derby. And so she joined the Brew City Bruisers and skated for 4 years. And I got a job working with the Urban Ecology Center. So it was great. We really loved Milwaukee. I never imagined coming back after kind of our big life in Alaska, but moved back. And then about 4 years into it, we said, you know what? We left Alaska not on our terms, but because of our folks. So then we said, well, let's go back. If we can find something that we want to do, then try it. And we went up, and Christine got this great job working for Premier Alaska Tours. And then I got this job as the chief operations officer for the Iditarod sled dog race. And this job, it was like the Super Bowl in Alaska. It's the biggest thing going in Alaska. So, and I was in charge of it because the CEO was, raising money. And then I was in charge of all the operations. We had an Air Force, 2,000 volunteers. It was crazy, but it got old really quick because they were resistant to a lot of things, including email. And so it was just, they had people who were there for a really long time. They just didn't want to change at all. So anyway, we left and we came back here. And so that's when I got the job with Rails to Trails Conservancy and started working for the Ronald Badger. So could I have the next slide, please? Rails to Trails is a national organization, 160,000 members. We've got 4 regional offices throughout the country. I'm the only employee in Wisconsin. And so next slide, please. So my project is called the Route of the Badger, and it's a Trail Nation project. That's what we branded these projects. And so all of those different projects, they're taking existing trail systems and connecting them to each other. So for instance, the Oak Leaf Trail and the Hank Aaron Trail connect, and the KK River Trail connects kind of, but if they were to expand those trails and connect them, build them to connect them, it would just, it's basically making a road system of trails that they're all connected. So if you've got existing trails and planned trails, they make this web of trails. It's really interesting work because you're working with the counties and the city and villages and towns and nonprofit organizations and businesses and private individuals, and you're trying to build consensus around trails. Next, please. Another project that we're working on as an organization is called the Great American Rail Trail. It's a 3,700-mile trail. Half of it is completed. So it's connecting existing trail infrastructure to each other, running through 12 states. It starts in DC and it ends in Washington. And so 52% of it is already completed.
Railroad?
Pardon me?
Railroad?
No, it's the Great American Rail Trail.
Rail.
So there are abandoned rail lines. There's some are through energy easements. So there's a variety of things, but it's all off road. So you cross roads, but you don't bike on the road eventually. So that's the plan. So this is a big initiative that our organization has taken on. An uninterrupted trail all the way across the country through 12 states. Next, please. But this is the Route of the Badger. And so if you look at it, the keys are, the red trails are existing, the orange are planned, the blue is existing on streets, and the green is planned on streets. And so if you total all those miles up, you get up to 700 miles. There's currently about 370 miles of the existing trail infrastructure. Next, please. So why do it? And I think you've got to advance these as you go. So hit the first one. Yeah. So it's expanding transportation options, giving people a chance to, instead of just always driving, if you can take a trail, and especially now, we're finding that lots of younger people, as they're getting into the workforce, they don't own a car, they don't want a car. They want to live close to their work and walk or bike to their work. Next, please. Yeah, so a lot of these businesses open on trails. So you'll see coffee shops, you'll see restaurants, you'll see little shops that open just because the trail is there. So it's a driver of economies. Next. Obvious, improving public health. You get people outside, walking on the trails, it's good for you. Next. Regional competitiveness. This is really interesting. Businesses are now using the fact that they're on a trail to attract younger workers. So we're working on a certain project called the 30th Street Corridor, which I'm going to get right into. But Molson Coors, Harley Davidson are right along that 30th Street corridor, and that's one of the reasons that they're in support of this trail. Next. And promoting equity. we found nationally that the places that have trails are the wealthier neighborhoods. And so, in fact, we've recognized in Milwaukee that it's a big problem. And so we'll get into that next. Next slide, please. So we did a study in 2017 called Reconnecting Milwaukee. And it was really, it was right when the Route of the Badger started in 2016. But in 2017, we're like, okay, we think what I'm about to explain to you is happening, but we're not sure. So we created a tool, a research tool, to measure how connected neighborhoods experiencing inequality were to trails. Next, please. And so what are neighborhoods experiencing inequality? High population under the poverty line, high population unemployed, low level of educational attainment, high percentage of zero-car households, high African-American population, high Hispanic population. Next, please. And so if we look at this slide, this is the 30th Street corridor right through here. And this is the expansion of the KK River Trail. Next, please. And what we found in these neighborhoods experiencing inequality, which are outlined here in red, that 8% of that population living in these neighborhoods are within 2 miles of a trail. But if you put in the 30th Street corridor and expand the KK River Trail, this green here goes to this, and it jumps to 66%. People living within a trail 2 miles close to the trail. So that gave us the fuel, the incentive to really focus and zero in on those two projects. Next, please. Where else has this been done? The DeQuinder Cut in Detroit. You know, we're looking, are there other places in the country that have done these kinds of projects and seen these kinds of results? And we also wanted to look at trails that were potentially below grade. What that means is that if you're driving on the road, walking on the road, and you look down and you see the rail corridor, so you're above it, you're above grade. So this trail, a portion of this for the 30th Street corridor will be below grade. Were there any other trails throughout the country that were below grade? Sure enough. Quinter Cut, 2.5 miles, that's how it looked before. Now it's a major thoroughfare for residents of Detroit. Same sorts of economic population there as well. Next. Midtown Greenway, look at that. I mean, that's crazy there. And we biked that. We did this in 2018. I took a whole group of people from Milwaukee to the Midtown Greenway just to experience it and meet the people who actually led the formation of the Midtown Greenway. And so now this is this fantastic trail. There's thousands of people using it. It's a major thoroughfare for getting to and from work destinations and just to exercise. Next, please. And then what else here? Well, the Menominee Valley went through a transformation that was unbelievable. Left and right, you can see the change. And so there's this investment in infrastructure. Can we do this on the north side around the 30th Street corridor and on the south side around the KK River Trail? Next, please. So here are pictures of the 30th Street corridor. So if we look here, this is Harley Davidson. This is a lot of these trees and vegetation are invasive. there's a lot of space in this particular area. So a trail, this is off the Highland Bridge. And that was designed and installed in 2004. And actually, if you see those plans from the city of Milwaukee, you'll see future bike path. So they had the vision, 2004, this is great. And then this is from the other side of the Highland Bridge. This is going through Miller Coors and the stadium back there. This area right here is the most difficult and most expensive area. So that'll probably be the very last thing that's done to connect the trail to the Hank Aaron State Trail. Next, please. So this is fun. This is off of the North Avenue Bridge. This is a business, the red business over there is called 3041. And it's a catering space and they have events there. But we decided to do a mock-up. And so next, please. I should have these side by side, but it really shows what could potentially happen. You have a ramp. It has to be really long. That's a 1 in 12 pitch. So it's a wheelchair accessible. And then here's the trail. It would be a two-way biking trail and a one-way for walking and running.
Would this be the one that goes under Bleach Street?
Yes, very good.
That would be so good.
Next, please. Here's another angle. We had an intern come in and she just popped these things out. And, wow, you are talented. Give you a little update on how do you make something like this happen. This is the latest news. We had a conversation with Wisconsin and Southern, the governor's office. Wisconsin and Southern owns this stretch of railroad. You know, how do you do something like this? How do you make it happen? Well, it's hard, especially if a railroad owns that land, because they don't want you on it. They don't want you anywhere near it. Why? Because of liability. It's, you know, what if a train derails? You know, what if someone dies? You know, what if someone gets hit by a train? You know, this is a problem. Well, the 30th Street corridor rail line has 1 train per day max, and the maximum speed is 20 miles per hour. So basically, they're using that rail line as a place to move cars from the storage area, which is north of Hampton. There's 24 wide tracks. And they store a lot of their cars up there. And so it's a staging area between Menominee Valley and further north. So they use it for that. They also use it to, they service Miller Coors. Now that section has about 4 trains per day max, but they're all going at very slow speeds, and they wouldn't be in conflict with the trail. So, given that background, we thought that this would be a perfect space for a rail with trail. So it's still an active rail line, but it's got a trail next to it. Now, rails to trail it's a former rail line, and then it's trail. This is a rail with trail. Well, are there any examples of that throughout the country? In fact, there are. There's 420 rail with trails throughout the country. We just completed a survey. So, and there's probably more now, because that survey was done 2 years ago. So, so these are the kinds of things that Rails to Trails does to try to increase trail infrastructure. Anyway, that meeting with the governor's office and Wisconsin and Southern went really well, but these things take time. But the state is interested in purchasing this rail line. And so, you know, we're encouraged with the progress so far. Next, please. And here's a below the scenes, so we had to throw Giannis in there. Next, please. Okay, so this is where I've got to move over there because you got to get back online, and I want to show you the map to show you a couple of really cool projects.
Yeah, because we had put. You can take over. You can play your mic.
Okay, so can we get this on the screen?
It's right here.
We had it before.
I know we did.
I think we have to escape.
And then
Yeah.
do a new one. Yeah, it's kind of weird. You know, I know what we need to do. We have to end the. Is that it?
Yep.
Well, this is PowerPoint page.
Hey.
There we go. Yeah,
Okay,
for some
cool.
reason it's.
Okay, so this is the map. Does this mouse work? Yeah. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna close that. Okay. So this is our map. And just to show you a few of the projects that are pretty cool. This is Racine County. Give you an example. This is the White River State Trail. And this is existing, the red is existing. Well, this orange line is 10.7 miles long. On May 5th of this past year, this state purchased this whole line from Canadian Pacific Railroad. Well, a lot of that was due to Speaker Robin Voss got $1 million designated through the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program for the purchase of that line. And then Racine County threw in another $500,000 to come up with the 1.5 million asking price. So now DNR signed a memorandum of understanding, signing it over to the county, and now they're going to work on getting this built. Actually, starting this year, they're applying for grants. So look at this. What's really cool is that once this is built, here's existing trail. This will go here, here. The blue is existing on street, but it'll go here, go all the way up. There's this little section here, but basically all of Racine County will be a loop. But then this, if it's got black on it, that means that that's been funded. So this is getting built this year. So there's a little section in here, little section here. This has already been cleared. This is a We Energy easement. So this is going to be built soon. And this will be altogether a 76-mile loop that will take you through 3 counties. Waukesha has actually got a really pretty robust trail system here. This is the New Berlin State Trail. This is the Glacial Drumlin Trail that goes all the way to Cottage Grove. So it's 10 miles from Madison. So it goes all the way across the southern part of Wisconsin. And DNR is working really hard to get that last 10 miles completed. And then once you're there, You can stay on trails, go through Madison, almost get to Devil's Lake. There's a section there, but once you're past there, you can go all the way to La Crosse. So imagine you would be able to go from here, the Hank Aaron is right here, and then cut down, get on New Berlin, and then go all the way to La Crosse. So you'd be able to go from the lake all the way up to the Mississippi River. So again, this was funded. This is a little section. This is the Beer Line Trail right here. The red is built already. And we're working really hard to get this section done right now. They are expanding the interstate right here. This is where that Home Depot is, and Capitol Drive, and up to Hampton, that's all torn up. Well, we got the DOT to build a tunnel underneath that new expansion. They added $3 million to build this little tunnel to their projects, but now there's going to be an uninterrupted path that goes underneath the interstate. In order to make that work, though, we had to work with a private landowner who owns 19 acres right here, who allowed us to develop this easement across his property. And this has been funded. This is the 20th Street corridor and a section of the Beer Line. But this, look at it now, it'll go from here and it'll connect right to the 30th Street corridor, right here. And this is Haven and Wood State Forest, really an underutilized gem in Milwaukee. But once the 30th Street corridor is built, and it will be built, it will go here. You'll be able to hit into the Hank Aaron right here. This is the stadium is right here. You'll go all the way to the lake, to the Oakley here. You'll come down and connect, or you'll be able to go up through the Beer Line and connect. So there'll be two different loops that you can do around the city. This is section up in, this is County Park right here. So this is part of the Oak Leaf system right here. Washington County, which is up here, has a really robust planning. They really want to do some big trail networks here. Right now, their biggest trail is called the Eisenbahn, which is a wonderful trail that runs through farmland. But they want to connect that all the way down to the Oak Leaf system here. So lots going on. How do I? Any questions about any of these trails?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Who are you working with in the community on 30th Street corridor? That's really a crucial element of any of these projects.
Right. Well, we're working with the 30th Street Corridor Industrial Corridor Club. They're our main partner. The Northwest Side CDC, Near West Side Partners, even with its neighborhood partnership. And then we've got, we reached out to Metcalf Park, Schumann Park, Old North Milwaukee. We just got funded through the Katina Foundation to do an equitable development plan study. And so what that really focuses on is residents first, because all of these trail projects, the challenge with the trail projects is that when the neighborhoods have not been engaged, what often has happened throughout the country is that these areas become gentrified.
Become what?
Did you go back to the mic? I don't think it is or
Okay. And we can switch back to that PowerPoint.
People online.
Yep, online people can hear.
I said I wasn't gonna do that. So these neighborhoods become gentrified. It's happened, the Atlanta Beltline, the 606 in Chicago, the High Line in New York. And what happened was that they got all this money. They thought it was city officials thought it was a great idea to do these infrastructure projects, but they didn't engage with the communities. It wasn't driven by the communities. And so what happened, like in Chicago, land prices around the 606 went up 250%. And so the Beltline, same kind of thing. In New York, it's crazy, like 1,200%. So just these phenomenal amounts of investment were made in these trail projects. So the thing before anything was ever done, before it was designed, it had to be brought to the community. But there's parallel paths going on here, because you have to, when you're building a trail, when you're doing infrastructure, you have to start just trying to figure it out. So then you're working on a path. Now, at the same time, you're engaging with these neighborhood groups, you're engaging with the nonprofit organizations, you're engaging with the city and the county, because you're trying to figure out whether or not people even want it. And so we found that people do want it, because when I was at the Urban Ecology Center at Washington Park for 4 years, what I noticed, because we did a lot of programs with kids, and the parents would come and I would say, you know, how come you're not biking here? And the parents wouldn't let them bike to the Urban Ecology Center because it wasn't safe enough. So this would provide, so I think that this is one of the reasons that it's being supported so far by the community, by the residents in the community, because they're seeing this as a safe place to recreate and to move around. So great question.
Have you been in touch with the Nature Conservancy staff in Milwaukee? They've got a staff person now.
Nearby Nature, Sierra Club?
No, Nature Conservancy, big land trust.
Yeah, I know who they are. I know who they
They've
are.
got a staff person in Milwaukee now, person of color. You really ought to contact with him.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'd love to. So everybody is welcome, and it's an inclusive process, it's a transparent process, and we're just trying to move the project forward. Yes, ma'am.
The only trail, into Urban Trail, is that continuing out to Sheboygan, or where is that?
That goes to Oostburg. Oostburg.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about that? Yes, Nancy.
Timeline for all of this.
Well, it's
Idea?
hard. Like this Katina Foundation grant is for the next 2 years, and we're still fundraising for more community outreach, so that if that all happens, it'll be 4 years just of the community outreach. There will be parallel paths though. So we're trying to get the state to buy it, because the railroads are not who you want owning the corridor to provide the easement. If the state owns it, then all of a sudden there's a lot more leeway as far as getting access to the railroad. So I'm hoping that some of the low-hanging fruit projects, because there's MMSD, Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewer District lands, and they're supportive of the trail, that they would allow some of this construction to happen earlier. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any guarantee that when you do the actual work, the digging and whatever else has to be done, that jobs are available to people in the residents in the area?
That's exactly what this this equitable development planning process is about. It's about residents first, so, workforce development. Because, the reality is that lots of things have to happen on the north side. It's not just a trail. This is about, and we've helped to get this money, but we're not the lead partner on it. So basically this grant is pass-through money to those organizations that I was talking about, the 30th Street Corridor, Industrial Corridor Forum, Near West Side Partners, Haven Woods, and Northwest Side CDC. Those are the organizations that are in the neighborhood. So they're the ones who are leading that project. So it's about housing development. It's about workforce development. It's about education, and it's about a trail. The trail is kind of the glue that kind of weaves everything together. Okay, we're getting close here. So, yes, ma'am.
How can you keep land values from skyrocketing?
I'm sorry.
How can you keep land values from skyrocketing if you build a third street, so that we, the lower income people have to move out of it?
Yeah. So a lot of these abandoned warehouses are currently owned by the city. So the city has a giant role to play in this. And so who are they going to sell it to? If none of this was being done, if there was no talk about the 30th Street corridor, the city would just be hanging on to these warehouses and these abandoned properties. And, if someone came by, they would consider the options. And so, for example, Near West Side Partners has purchased a bunch of these properties, and then they are the ones who are kind of regulating who and what kinds of development and how those developments are happening in place. So 30th Street Corridor, Industrial Corridor Corp's interested in purchasing and signing agreements with the city for some of these properties, as well as Near West Side, as well as Northwest Side CDC. So that's how you, it's difficult. Yes, sir.
This is a project that's also been endorsed by the City County Task Force on Climate and Economic Equity. So it's on the radar for the equity part of that. And like you said, there's lots of tools that are available.
Yes.
The last thing you want is gentrification.
You've shown us other models. You've shown us other models. Are there models where they manage to keep the gentrification down and have thriving communities around?
Yeah, there's one in DC right now called the 11th Street Bridge, and that's one of our guiding lenses with the project. I know church is starting, so enjoy that. But I'll just wrap up. This is another one that you should know about. It's called the Powerline Trail. It's happening this summer. It's 4.5 miles along We Energies corridor, and it goes from the Oak Leaf Trail over here, and it's funded all the way to 35th Street. And it's going to go along that energy corridor. Now we're in discussion with Milwaukee, St. Francis, and West Dallas to do the rest of it and connect it all. And that'll just be another east-west connection. Next slide, I think that's it. Next. Okay, if you'd like to get involved or would like to further information, just contact me and be happy to talk to you about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah.